for infrastructure. We need a lot more funding. But I just told you that the government is investing $1.3 trillion. So how much more do we need, right? These are certain questions which I'm pretty sure would be cropping up in your head. So let's go like a little bit sector by sector to see, what are the challenges. So for example, if you look at the roads, subsector, here we can see that overall what is happening in the road sector is national highways are really growing. National highways are growing at an unprecedented pace, but that is new national highways. The maintenance of national highways has become a big challenge. So therefore, the government came out with a new model called the TOT model, in which sort of you transfer, operate, and then transfer back. So essentially, the government has built a national highway. It is owned by the government. It transfers it to a private company for 20-30 years for maintenance. The private company operates it and then maintains it well, maybe charges a toll, and then transfers it back to the government after 20-30 years to say, okay, I have actually kept it in good condition. And other than that, one big challenge in the road sector is funding, especially for rural roads, because national highways are able to attract funding. The NHAI, the National Highways Authority of India, actually created and leveraged a lot of money on the private financial markets. They actually have large borrowings. They've issued bonds. And why is it that people would like to invest in NHAI bonds? I'm sure many of your parents have also done it. My parents have also done it. And the reason is that NHAI borrowing is like government borrowing, right? So when they issue a bond on the private market, it's guaranteed by the government of India, which makes it a very safe instrument to invest in, which is why NHAI has been borrowing a lot on the markets. But the funding challenge comes with rural roads, state roads, district roads. So you have lovely national highways that are coming up at this point, but you have a problem with rural connectivity, as you can see from the chart here. Then the second sector I want to talk about is railways. Now, not many people know much about railways, except that I'm sure everybody over here has taken at least 1 to 2 train journeys in their life, right? So railways are, of course, essential for our country because the connectivity of railways today still is better than roads. There are places where railways can reach even in the hilly areas, even in the desert terrain where there are no roads. But the problem with our railways are aging infrastructure. Railways were built at the time of the British, right? Initially. After that, over the decades, there have been improvements, but they have not kept pace with the way our population has increased. So what we need is to invest much more in upgrading our rail infrastructure. The second thing is railways are not just used to transport people. Railways are also used to transport heavy commodities. So think about cement bags. I'm sure many of you have seen construction sites with large amount of cement and gravel and sand and all of that. Those are transported via railways. Now, if the railways are not in a good condition, then the freight cost of basic commodities increases, and what do we have? An inflationary impact on the economy. So essentially, what the ministry has done is that they've developed something called the National Rail Plan 2050. And there has been, a movement towards privatizing railways. So in fact, the new railways minister, Mr. Ashwini, who has been appointed just a few weeks ago, has been brought in with this sort of mandate that you need to bring in more private participation into rail sector, which at this point in time is the biggest challenge confronting railways. How do we get in more interest from private sector? Where can private sector come in? It can develop stations. I mean, think about how metro stations have come up in Delhi and other cities. They are like commercial, or think about airports. Airports are like commercial centers. And now contrast this with the way our railway stations look. it's like you have gone back 2 centuries when you look at our railway stations versus our airports, right? So what we actually need is to bring in private investment